Hey everybody, I hope and pray that you're doing well today as we come to our word from the Word. And today that word is promise. Promise. Now today I am thankful for the promises of God. I am so grateful that He keeps His end of the promises even when I mess up my end. And sometimes He keeps His end of the promise even maybe in spite of or because I mess my end up. In other words, same way He told the Israelites over and over again, right? If you do this, if you do good, you will be blessed. If you do bad, I will punish you. But we also know that there are unconditional promises, unconditional parts of the covenant as well. But now, having said that, well, he hadn't really set all that up yet, has he? Well, today in Exodus chapter 19, I want you to see just a little bit. You have this whole beautiful image and powerful image of what's going on Mount Sinai, and the fact that God is going to settle down and His presence is going to settle down on the mountain. And as it does, they even have to prepare themselves in 3 days to be prepared for the presence of God to come that close, being prepared to present themselves before God. And so he also tells them not to even touch the foot of the mountain, like to set up boundaries to keep them apart, to keep them from being killed because of the holiness of God. Yet Moses is invited up. And so as he's coming up, and he's the mediator, I guess, or he's the intercessor at times as well, but between man and God for Israel. And so he calls him up and he tells him a couple things. But here's one thing he says at the beginning of the chapter, before even all that comes to be. This is when he's going to give him those instructions. Notice what God says and then what the people say. So Exodus 19, we'll look at verses 4 through the first part of verse 6, and then we'll jump down to just the first part of verse 8. You have seen what I did to the Egyptians, and how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now, therefore, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, then you shall be a special treasure to me above all people, for all the earth is mine. And you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. And you go down a little bit later in verse 8, he says, Then all the people answered together and said, All that the Lord has spoken, we will do. Well, I wonder how long they're going to keep that promise. See, that's the thing as I look at it today, I think, how many times do we tell God, I promise I'll do exactly what you say? How many times, we look back in the Old Testament, we look back in the history of Israel and see how many times, just as a nation, they let God down. How many times that they grumbled against God? How many times that, even the time you're going to see that's coming up, right? Even the time, like in the immediate future, that they're not going to do what God has said. Now, I don't question their intentions because I believe that they intended to do what God had told them to do. And if we're honest, those times where God moves in our heart and we read His Word and study His Word, our spirit is moved to do the things that we say. Hey, I'm going to read my Bible more. I'm going to pray more. I'm going to take God more seriously. Right? This is something we all struggle with. Because we say we're going to do those things and we make a promise to God, and yet then we look and we have failed. It's kind of like one of those New Year's resolutions that seems to be over before, maybe even before the first week of January is done. Maybe you make it through the first month, but they usually don't last that long. Doesn't mean that you didn't have the right reasons to begin with. Doesn't mean that you didn't have the right intentions and even a right heart as far as we can. The thing is that I am so thankful that God is patient, long-suffering, merciful, and gracious because of the times that we promise Him the same things. Man, He told Israel, look, I'm going to make you a great nation. I'm going to do all these great things. He's handed down these promises for generations and generations. And And yet, here, as he has the nation, and he's like, okay, hey, we're there, and now I want to get you to where you're supposed to be, and I want to do some things special with you as a nation, and all you need to do is listen to what I'm telling you and obey it. Have you ever noticed that the things that God asks of his people just simply requires obedience and faith? And really, those two go hand in hand, right? That when we have faith in the right way, then we should be obedient. And when we're obedient, it's going to require faith because of what he's asking us to do. The people a lot of times would have the right intentions, but yet they would not follow through. Is it because they lacked faith, or because they lacked focus on the right object of their faith? See, New Testament, Jesus talks about this in his ministry as well, right? He says, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed. That tells us it's not the size, right? But more the strength, or more specifically, the object of our faith. See, today, even as we look to this passage, and maybe you were tempted to make promises to God yourself, I don't want this to discourage you from stepping out and saying, God, I want to, and I desire to do this, and I, when you get to that, well, I promise to do so, or say, I will do this. Make sure we say it with a realistic attitude that says, God, by your strength, I will do it. Only if you are with me, God, only if you continue to strengthen me, will I be able to do this. Because as soon as we stand and say, I will do it myself, and we do it in our own strength, we will fail to keep our promises. But praise God, I am thankful he keeps his promises to us. God bless you, and I pray you have a great, great day.